Hi, so for my final project, I'm going to be analyzing Moffatt versus Air Canada. This is going to be like a 2024 case that involved customer service, a customer service chatbot that gave like information that was not correct about bereavement fares. I think it's really important. It kind of shows that AI is not perfect, and when AI does eventually fail, it's on the company to accept the responsibility for what the system does. So, why does this case matter? I think this case matters because AI tools are being used in a lot of different things nowadays, like customer service, banking, education, healthcare, the government, and even legal work. So, I think with this case, the issue isn't just like the AI or the chatbot made a mistake. It's a really bigger problem, which is like an organization using technology to serve customers and do different things than them avoiding the responsibilities when those technologies either fail or cause harm to the customers. So my position on this is that Air Canada, they are responsible legally and ethically in verifying that their AI and chatbot is completely accurate before giving that information out to their customers. So in 2022, Jake Moffatt, he was trying to book a flight after his grandmother had passed away. So while he was doing that, he was on Air Canada. He was looking at their bereavement fare policy, and he used their chatbot. And the AI told him that if he had already traveled, then he could submit a ticket for a refund application, like within 90 days, I believe. And based off of that, he kind of booked his flight and then later applied for the reduced fare to cover it. But then Air Canada denied that, and because in the actual policy, the bereavement fare request could not be made after the travel had already been completed. So the AI made up something and kind of lied to the customer. So on the slide, I have a timeline on events that kind of showed that the situation wasn't just a misunderstanding on the customer's part, and that the AI chatbot actually gave specific instructions that the customer followed, but then the instructions turned out to be wrong. And even Air Canada later admitted that the chatbot had provided misleading words. So the Civil Resolution Tribunal decided that Air Canada was in fact responsible for the information on their website, even if like it didn't matter if it was static information on a web page or if it was interactive information from a chatbot. So totally, the customer was awarded $812 and broke down to $650 in damages and $36 in prejudge judgment interest and also $125 in tribunal fees. So as for stakeholders, the main one was Jake Moffatt because he relied on the chatbot and ended up suffering financial consequences because of that. And then Air Canada is also a stakeholder because it was their chatbot that made the mistake, and they also faced like reputation, like consequences to their reputation and also legal consequences. I think other customers matter too because if one customer received incorrect information, others could have also been misled. The IT team and customer service leaders are also stakeholders because they designed the chatbot that made the mistake. And finally, the court regulators are also stakeholders because cases like this kind of shape how AI accountability will be handled in the future. Because if we let one case slide of AI being bad and then no one being held accountable, it's going to happen over and over again in the future. So the key legal issues was negligent misrepresentation. The tribunal kind of explained that negligent misrepresentation happens when a seller doesn't use reasonable care to make sure the statements it makes are accurate and not misleading. So, Air Canada kind of argued that it shouldn't be liable for the information that the chatbot made, but the tribunal rejected this and then rebutted, saying that the chatbot was in fact part of Air Canada's website and was also made by Air Canada. So they said that it should have been very obvious that Air Canada was responsible for the information on its website slash created by its chatbot. Next, the ethical issue. I think this is kind of bigger than the legal issue because Air Canada created and gave a chatbot to customers to give them information, but then didn't even ensure that the information the chatbot was giving out was correct. I think this kind of creates an ethical problem because customers, they, of course, they're going to assume that the official information coming from the company's official website and its official chatbot is going to be true. But the organization benefits from the automation, but it doesn't actually uh it doesn't actually take steps into making sure it's correct and actually holding themselves accountable for the information that's put out by the chatbot. So it's kind of not ethically okay for them to benefit off the ease of using a chatbot while not making sure the information that it's giving out is actually correct and useful to their customers. So the course connection for this kind of came from chapter 7, which focused on ethical decisions in software development and also software quality. And in chapter 7, it kind of explains that high quality software should kind of meet the user's needs and work and operate safely and reliably and keep the system downtime or failures to as low as they can possibly get it. It also explains that the defects can range from tiny, small mistakes to serious harm. And in this case, the chatbot's like mistake was not just like a little bug. It actually caused a customer to uh, suffer a financial loss. So the next chapter that also came into play was chapter 4, which kind of broadens the analysis because the chatbot didn't only provide information, they also interact with the users and and it may also collect and process like personal information from the user, especially if the user is telling them their situation and why they needed the ticket. So the chapter kind of explained that organizations gather and store and also analyze and report information to make better decisions, but this should be balanced against the rights and the desires of the people whose information is being used. So in an AI chatbot, the settings and privacy and trust are kind of like mixed together in one. And if the customer doesn't trust the system to give accurate information or the company's data practices, then the technology becomes ethically not sound or ethically weak, even if it's super convenient to use. Finally, I think chapter 10 comes into play because it kind of points out that uh, technology firms may have written policies, but the policies don't always protect people unless they're actually used and kind of added in effectively. And I think that kind of fits Air Canada's problem because the company had official bereavement policies, but then the chatbot gave the customer completely different information. So the ethical failure was not only with the wrong answer, it was also between the gap of the written policy and the technology customers actually experience. So in the internals of Air Canada, most likely they're told to make sure the information is accurate before giving it to customers, but turns out that's not actually what happened in a real life case. So this is the academic research I did for this. So first was I'm not sure how to say this, Alagarmsi and Melharolia, they found that chatbot trust kind of affects the customer's attitude, like their behavioral intention and satisfaction, which I think matters because the customer in this case relied on the chatbot as an official source of information in order to make a good decision during his time of like grieving. Next is Lempenman, I'm sorry, and their colleagues found that privacy concerns negatively affect customer like disclosure in chatbot context, showing that trust isn't just automatic just because a company is known. So like they need to understand that the chatbot is safe and private to give their information to. Next was Algoff and their colleagues, they explained that trustworthy AI depends on technical factors like accuracy, safety, and um, as well as ethical and legal trustworthiness. The next one was Jansen, and they argued for responsible AI governance and they say that it must cover the entire organization, just not one technical team, to like ensure that the entire organization are using AI properly. And the final one was Magesh and their colleagues, which showed that even advanced AI tools can still give out false information, which proves why human oversight is very important in making sure that the information that we're giving, even if it's through AI, even if the AI is just aggregating the information on the website, we need to ensure that that information is correct so issues like this don't keep happening in the future and don't keep putting the customers at risk or causing the customer more losses. Next is my biblical integration. For biblical integration, I chose Proverbs 11:1 because this case ultimately was about like fairness and business transactions. Um, so the verse kind of says that dishonest scales and are detestable. Sorry, dishonesty is like detestable to the Lord, while like accuracy and truth finds favor in God. And in modern terms, I think a company's website, their pricing, their policy, their refunds, and their chatbot is kind of like them telling the customer what they offer and what they have. And even if it is an AI chatbot, if it's a lie, it's still a lie. Even if it's an unintentional lie, because it was caused not like by mistake, but by a lack of accountability for the things you're creating. So from a Christian point of view, um accuracy isn't just like a goal to meet just because it's a technical goal. It's also like a moral responsibility that God gives us to make sure what we're doing is truthful and accurate and correct. So this is my personal reflection. I think all of this kind of plays into accountability, being accountable for the things you do and the things as a leader, the things you do, the people you lead do, and the things that you create also do, all fall under you because you're a leader and you're in charge of that. So, as someone who is preparing for military leadership, this just kind of reminds me that a leader can't blame the tools or like the people around them when their mission fails or when something goes wrong. So we all have to make sure that we're working together to ensure that what we're doing is correct on each level. And it all plays into making sure you and your people are held accountable for what you create and what you do. So finally, my position is that Air Canada was rightly held responsible for the actions of the AI chatbot. The chatbot isn't an independent person. It's not like on its own. Just it didn't show up on its own. It was created and used and implemented by Air Canada. So because it was a tool that Air Canada chose to put on its website, the company is responsible for its accuracy. So I think the practical lesson here is to not to just use AI systems because they're easy to use, but to make sure they're tested, they're properly monitored, and they're also like receiving the correct information so we can give out the correct information to customers who need it. To conclude, I think this Moffatt versus Air Canada case shows that AI tools can kind of create real legal and ethical issues and consequences. And this case kind of involved inaccurate chatbot information, uh, and the customer relying on the chatbot, financial harm, as well as a company trying to avoid the responsibility for a chatbot they created. And the tribunal's decision, I personally agree with it because an organization is responsible for the systems they create and they allow their users to use on their platform. And for the people who are leaders in that company, I think it's clear that they need to take more accountability for the things that they create so they don't just try to push the blame off onto something else. Thank you for listening this week.